Good morning. It is what time? 6:52 a.m. on Wednesday, April 25th, 2018. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I need some caffeine. Where did I didn't prepare any before sitting down to record this today. Oh no. I'll be okay. I probably. Uh Yesterday, I didn't accomplish nearly as much as I had kind of originally planned. I was going to work on the story so far thing some more, and I was going to make, like one of my Blue Apron meals for dinner. And then I kind of ended up just playing Nino Kuni 2 more for most of the evening. I'm definitely into that game. It continues to be easy in terms of difficulty. But that said, I mean, sometimes that I'm not looking to be challenged in terms of gameplay. I'm just enjoying the story. It's charming. It has maybe more walking around than I'd like, but the fast travel system is pretty no muss, no fuss. So maybe I'll just be doing that more. Um, but a lot of the maps are big and beautiful, and the beautiful is the key there. But then you also just find, like, oh, but now I have to run all the way across from here to there, and oh wait, now I got the thing that lets me open that door I couldn't open, and so now I have to walk all the way back. And you can just fast travel if you want, but I'm used to in games not using fast travel all that often, just because lots of times you discover new things as you walk back through areas that you haven't been through before. And this one has a lot of walking around. That's a minor nitpick, though, because generally speaking, as I mentioned, it's beautiful, and it is beautiful. Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far, and it's, kid friendly in terms of the story. Um, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it. And I mean, just if nothing else, take um, the point that I was going to do other things and ended up doing that instead because that's what I was drawn to do. So take that as a recommendation. The other thing is that I have been reading a little. I read a little bit more about the Fate Core system of role-playing games, and learning more about that. And it's interesting reading through how that system works because obviously there's a lot of similarities with Dungeons and Dragons in terms of the basic game type and like how it plays. I mean, the rule system is different, but in general, you're doing a lot of the same things, which is inventing story and collaboratively determining where the story goes and bringing in conflicts and using rules to resolve those conflicts and all of those things are, so the big picture stuff, a lot of it is very similar. But the differences are obviously where it's interesting, which is the whole reason of looking into different game systems, right? Where one of the things that reading about in Fate Core that I think is really interesting and something that's maybe missing from Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want to say missing because I think it's by design, but uh, the system of consequences is something that's built into Fate Core, and that the idea of that is that you can only take so much damage before you are, taken out of a fight. And part of the way that you avoid being completely knocked out is by accepting consequences. If we're talking about a traditional physical combat, those consequences are going to be generally things like injuries, or maybe a weapon is broken, or something like that. Um, and those are things that it has a system that prevent you from resolving those things right away. And it's not like, see, whereas in Dungeons and Dragons you have the hit points, but like no matter, even if you get reduced all the way to 0 hit points and you are on death's door and you are one dice roll away from being permanently dead, But then if you are just stabilized by a lucky dice roll and you're still at 0 hit points and then you get a long rest, now you are back to 100%. And that's something that, I mean, they built into Dungeons and Dragons, I think, deliberately, because they kind of want you to be able to get into these big fights that have scary things, but then be able to just move on. But I do kind of like the idea of lingering injuries that may even be something that permanently changes your character in some way. I think that that's interesting, and it's something built into the Fate core system. And that's something obviously you could do as DM discretion. You could do within Dungeons and Dragons. You could say that when someone is knocked unconscious or hit with something particularly hard or suffers some particular, bit of damage, you could say that in addition to the hit point loss, there's also some injury that doesn't actually get healed all the way. But it's a question of like, you have to be careful with that when there's not a rule in place, because that could potentially start to feel unfair. And so you have to use it at your discretion, whereas it's built into the rule system. It's an expectation in Fate Core. So it's interesting. I'm just thinking about the differences still. Anyway, I will leave it there for today, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.